I guess we'll start with my background. I've been doing wireless stuff since 2003, so 15 years. So I've kind of got to see the evolution of wireless, which is really cool from my perspective, because as all they added on these technologies as we went along. I was there for every one of those pain points that came along with it. So it was definitely interesting, and I worked for a Cisco Gold partner for probably 5 years, and worked with some really good CCIEs, route switch. And I also have my CCNA. I do have, before they changed out to the CCNA wireless, I had like the CCA or a wireless field specialist and field engineer certification from Cisco. I also have a degree in computer engineering and two, undergraduate degrees in computer science and digital electronics. And so I do understand this as a wireless at a physics level, and the whole binary level of how this stuff works. So I also have a lot of hospital experience, designing hospital architecture from 2003. Whatever, because it used to be a nice to have type of thing, to now it's infrastructure. This is no longer something nice to have. This is absolute, has to be 100%, the 5 nines network, right?
Yeah, exactly. Totally understand. Now, in the hospital, I mean, just rattle off some of the, some of the equipment that's depending upon Wi-Fi. It's not just the workstations on wheels. I mean, there's all sorts of clinical devices, right?
And we get mobile devices. You get fusion pumps. You get EKG machines. Just anything you can hook up to a patient, dash monitor type of stuff from GE that monitor heart rates and those type of things. Not only the EKG machines, but the actual monitors itself that the nurses can see. Just anything that can monitor a patient. You've seen all this really new stuff come out as far as patient tracking and patient monitoring. In the last 5 years, we've seen just a plethora of different medical devices that actually connect to the wireless. And we haven't seen the wireless really well from an infrastructure standpoint. The businesses have not kept up with the client side, at least from what I see.
Sure.
The infrastructure is not kept up from the actual client push that we're seeing, right? The Internet of Things.
So why don't we talk a little bit about your 7SIGNAL deployment?
That's right. Yeah. So when I came on board, it was probably a month or so after I started. I kind of got the whisperings of this device and had to nail down who had it. And so I ended up getting a hold of Ray and found out that we had like 45 or 50 of these devices, and immediately wanted to use them for troubleshooting some of these really problem areas that they've had issues with ever since they opened these facilities. They were newer facilities that have come online, and ever since they were opened, they had some sort of issue either with the wireless, or they really couldn't put their fingers on it. Everybody points to wireless, right?
Yep.
That it's got to be the wireless network. So about 85% of my job right now is defending it's not the wireless. and in order to do that on a very granular level, the 7SIGNAL devices, the Sapphire eyes, in conjunction with the mobile eyes, makes this just like child's play to me anyway, because what I used to have to do with wireless is check all these individual things that 7SIGNAL gathers and puts in a single pane of glass, either with the mobile eye or the infrastructure side on the Sapphire side, that just makes this, like I said, like child play to me, because it's just glaring. And I know Kush, him and I have talked back and forth on some of this stuff, and it's just, I can say I think it's this, and Kush and I will go through the motions. And it's that, so it's not like it's leading me down some rabbit hole or anything.
Right.
This has been spot on every step of the way. And I think that the best outcome that we've had with this was actually identifying a Cisco bug that they've actually assigned the bug to. And so anyway, Cisco is now fighting back because I discovered it on the 3500s and the 35 and the 3700s. Oh, wow. That bug does not say that it's on the 3500s, but yesterday, or maybe a couple days ago, you saw one of the flares that went up, one of the alerts that we got from one of the Redwood City monitors. We had another AP die that's on a 3500 where the 5 gig radio went silent again. And that was a golden catch because Cisco wouldn't believe us. It was also on the 3500, but that was awesome to be able to catch that. And then we had a whole session with Cisco and Verizon over that particular situation and how it was triggered, or how did we know, because they thought there was some elaborate thing that I had made or something to find out how this went down. And I was like, oh no, it was 7SIGNAL, and here's the trigger. And they got really quiet because they really wanted to deny that it was actually happening on the 3500, and we kind of caught it. I mean, just it was glaring, right? So just really good stuff.
When you describe, in describing the problem just a little bit, the access point, like you say, on 5 gigahertz, it kind of goes silent. So if it's not beaconing, then your clients can't roam to it, right?
Right. Or, if, they're just at an area and they happen to open up their laptop, they'll connect, to some other AP distantly if they're only on a 5 gig SSID, right? And so then they complain that the wireless is bad. Well, it is, right? Because they don't really have access. They're connecting to something so far away that it's just a horrible experience, right?
Wow. Hey, Eric, if I may add, so this is a tricky situation, right? So this is the case where the AP is online from the 5 gigahertz radio perspective. So when you look at any of the vendors' dashboards, right, they'll say the AP is online, but it's not providing client connections. And this is problematic because the client will keep recurringly trying to connect, and it doesn't. Mm-hmm. And eventually, from an RF perspective, it's creating a coverage hole. So you have no connectivity there on 5 gigahertz, and 2.4 we know is interference prone. So that's a major issue.
Yeah. So even if we had an SSID that did both 2.4 and 5 gigs, even if they were on the 5 gig, when they roamed into that area, they would have to switch to the 2.4 because that radio was silent. And of course, that with Health Connect, it doesn't tolerate those type of disconnects or delays. So it would seem to them, and they would lose information that they had in Health Connect when that happened. So it was a really bad, glaring situation.
And what areas of the hospital are we talking about here? Do you guys put these Sapphire eyes in certain strategic locations that are prone?
We do, and in one particular situation that and Cush and I found a lot of issues was in an emergency department that we're currently talking with Cisco of how critical that failure was right outside of an operating room. If there were, if they would have been involved in something at that exact moment, Cush and you and I talked about this particular one. I think it was like AP 63 maybe. Or maybe a 67. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that thing dropped in the middle of the day, and like I said, if they would have been on that 5 gig, that is a patient safety issue. And so that's what we're trying to say to Cisco. You may be thinking this is only a 1 or 2% issue in this large environment, but those 1 or 2% issues could be, cause some real safety issues.
Absolutely. My goodness. Now, as you know, you have both products of ours, the Sapphire Eye and the Mobile Eye. You guys are just kind of getting started with Mobile Eye. Have you seen any results from it yet?
We exclusively are trying to remediate Hawaii on the 5th floor in the patient area in Maui. And it's they had a whole bunch of issues with clients getting disconnected and that type of thing. And we had to get to the Mobile Eye on each, because they're on WOWs, right?
Yep.
And we were trying to see if there were coverage holes or whatever was going on up there, and it wasn't. It was so when they try to connect to that particular SSID, it's a 2.4 and a 5 gig SSID, and they were switching back and forth for no apparent reason other than in the AnyConnect profile, that was the top SSID. That was always the primary, and the other SSID was always a secondary. So whenever it failed, it would go back to that primary SSID, and again it would disconnect because it went from 2.4 to 5, and it would disconnect them from Health Connect, and they would drop their connection and lose their data. But once we switch them over to the 5 gig only SSID, we see much better roaming. We don't see drops. So we pretty much remediated and actually changed the profiles and the image on those particular wows, and we have just a test base of 5, and they're working flawlessly now for the last probably 3 weeks. And we've probably been working with them for like a couple of months, just trying different things with the devices, different profiles, different settings for 5 gig, preferences for antennas to connect to. But we found it just most efficient to change it to the other 5 gig SSID, and we really see those things roaming a lot better. But we also have test bases in Southern Cal that we're doing just with the Mobileye, where we're seeing the same thing. We have one SSID that does 2.4 and 5 gig, and then one does exclusively 5 gig. And we switch those things over, and we see a much better client interaction with the infrastructure. But we could never see that before because we never had historical data. And once we applied the Mobileyes to those, it was something we could go back to. But they could also email us or call us and say, at this particular time, this device was doing this. We can go back and actually pinpoint that event. That's never been done at this facility.
That's great. And when you say Health Connect, that's like some kind of, it's like a communications network for your doctors and nurses across hospitals?
It would be in EMR, yes. It's a complete EMR where, you have PAC systems and, data collection from blood gas machines and radiology, and just everything is all funneled into one central electronic medical record system.
Got it.
And that's where they access virtually every different system is through Health Connect, or they get results through Health Connect. And that's the way the whole system works, is through that one interface.
And I guess the last question that I have, what do you think in terms of future plans for 7SIGNAL? Are you guys talking internally about maybe getting this on some more hospitals, or?
Actually, since we found the whole bug system, 7SIGNAL has gotten a really high profile at this company. And as a matter of fact, yesterday, my boss called Sean and started inquiring about several hundred of the devices, and I need to talk to Kush about doing some deployments in large medical centers, large MOBs and medium MOBs and small MOBs, how we can cover the entire facility in order to monitor this bug, because Cisco has no fix for it. And it's a time bomb that's sitting in our network, and we really want to be able to put pressure on these guys to come up with a fix, right? And we need to get a better scope on what we're doing. So I wanted to get with Kush, and Kush, that we got that stuff at Redwood City right now. We kind of wanted to maybe starting next week, just hooking up that entire facility and the entire campus, the outlying buildings. And we're talking, probably 600 APs, and I'm trying to get the square footage, but it's a lot. That facility, and then a couple other facilities. We might even do Walnut Creek as a medical center, just the medical center there. Ontario Medical Center and the MOB that's attached. But want different models for those sizes, right? Medical centers, hospitals, large MOBs, medium MOBs, and multi-tenant small MOBs. It's just a way, but we really need to come up with a strategy that covers the entire hospital, because I don't want any APs not seen, you know what I mean?
Right.
So we need to kind of get together on that, and I was kind of tasked with that. It's sometime with all the other stuff. So whenever we could get together on that, Chris, that would be, and then maybe we can do it next Tuesday when we have our meeting. Maybe we can just dedicate it to that instead of actually, looking at other things like and then that way I can get some sort of number on this pilot that we can get started on. I mean, yesterday basically is what I was told. So we just need to come some sort of agreement on price and all that. And that's not my deal. That's Bill's thing. And I don't care what it costs. I just want the stuff right. And apparently they're going to do that. So, like I said, I got a really high profile over the last couple of weeks, and I'm glad that I've really stuck with this. And Kush, I really appreciate the support that I've gotten from you.
Yes, no problem.
I remember I was telling you I had the big meeting last week with
the planning.
This week. With planning. I am now assigning everybody in planning an account, and I gave them a 7SIGNAL device to go in and compare with the Cisco probe that hooks into DNA, right? And then I showed them the difference during these meetings, how much more granular that 7SIGNAL would give us with the mobile eye in conjunction with the Sapphire eye. There's no comparison with the data with any other product, right? So good stuff. So,
well, yeah, you'll be happy to know that Kush is a real hero at 7SIGNAL too. So
yeah, it's just nothing like
outstanding.
that.
So we're doing good things, guys. And that's kind of where we're headed. I don't know how much bigger it's going to get after that, but I do know that we're working on some kind of long-term stuff with Bill and Sean starting yesterday. There was a conversation that they just needed to sharpen some pencils and get this thing rolling.
And we want to help. So this is great stuff.
I like it, and I appreciate everything that the company has offered. I mean, just from the products to Kush and Sean, everything's been wonderful, and these guys have just bent over backwards for anything that I've asked for, and I really appreciate it.